All right then. Well, as you can see, there's my Rocky. I started to tell a story about when I was small on the previous video while I was eating my stew, which was quite good, by the way. It was quite an enjoyable stew. It's leftover stew from the other night. Really good. Anyway, I started to tell a story about when I was a little boy. Some little routine that my dad and I would do. We didn't have any money. We were quite poor. And my dad was a very hard worker, but it was just how it was, you know. I mean, he was a skilled tradesman. He was a tool and die maker and an industrial mechanic. And that meant that he got paid just enough money to slowly starve to death. That's about it. It was just how it was. The living was really cheap in those days, but nobody had any money. You know, that's how it was. Anyway, what that meant is that we really didn't ever have dessert. After supper, we didn't have dessert. We were lucky to have supper. We did always have supper, but we didn't have dessert, unless it was somebody's birthday or Christmas or something like that. There were some few exceptions where there were a special occasion where we'd have a dessert, but it was rare. It was really a rare thing that we'd ever have a dessert anyway. And so at the end of supper, I would always ask my dad, I would say, "What's for dessert?" Knowing full well there wasn't going to be any dessert. But I'd ask him that. And he would tell me, this is what he'd say to me. This is pretty funny. You probably get a kick out of this. He would tell me that we were going to have, for dessert, air pudding with win sauce and a big glass of balloon juice to wash it down. That was it. Air pudding with win sauce and a big glass of balloon juice to wash it down. That was dessert. Anyway. And yeah, I remember that real well when I was a little kid. So anyway, that was our dessert. Air pudding with win sauce and a big glass of balloon juice to wash it down. Um yeah. So that was a little routine we used to do anyway. We didn't have a lot of money, but my dad had a pretty good sense of humor about it. We used to buy these boxes of Mary Miles wieners. Had a picture of a little girl on the cardboard box with blonde hair and a bow in her hair or whatever. And they were greasy things. They were pretty nasty, really. Mary Miles wieners. And my dad used to say that we ate miles and miles of wieners. I guess if you laid them out end to end, it'd be miles and miles of wieners that we ate. That was another thing. Um, and when he had the old 1962 Pontiac car, the old Pontiac Parisienne sedan with the Stovebolt 6 engine, reliable. They weren't a fast car, but boy, were they reliable. Those cars, what killed most of those old GMs from that era was the X frame. From 1958 to 1964, General Motors experimented with an X frame. Terrible idea. The cars just fell apart. Of course, now they don't have any frame, and we're told they're stronger than ever, so go figure. I don't know how that works, but anyway, they became a rattle trap, is what happened, those cars with the X frame, though. They wasn't a great idea. The old box perimeter frame is the way to go. But if you want a car that will last and stay good for a long time, put a proper frame under it. You put a foundation under your house. Why wouldn't you have a frame under your car? Anyway, our old Pontiac Carvo, my dad used to call it a Pontiac. Like a Cadillac, a Pontiac. It was a poor man's Cadillac, is what it was. A Pontiac. So that was it. We had a Pontiac. A 1962 Pontiac Parisienne is what we had. Parisienne. It sounds very fancy. Parisienne. It sounds like la di da. We drive a Parisienne. you know. the upper crust, something the upper crust would drive. It's funny, I heard this one time. For anyone who doesn't know, just a little side note, nothing to do with me directly or with my family or anything, but just when I said upper crust, it reminded me. I heard one time how the phrase upper crust came to be, and it's kind of interesting. And poor people back in the real old days, even before I was around, way, way back, before anybody listening to this was around, really. If you were poor and you baked the pie, because flour was expensive and so on, if you baked the pie, you just made the shell and you put the filling in, but you didn't put a crust over the top of it. You just wouldn't do that. You wouldn't put a crust over the top of it, because that would mean using more ingredients, and that was just a little too fancy, Had to make your stuff last as long as you could, because stuff was expensive and people didn't have money. That's how it was. And so if you were poor, you baked the pie, you made the pie shell, you put your ingredients into it, you baked it, but it didn't have a cover on it. There was no crust on the top of it. People with money, though, they would put a crust on the top of the pie, because they didn't have to worry so much about using up all their flour before next payday or whatever, And so they would put a crust on the top of the pie too, which of course was the upper crust. So those people that had a crust both on the bottom and the top of their pie, those people were the upper crust. That's where that saying came from. Kind of neat to know. I find it interesting to know where different sayings come from, Anyway, that's it for now. I do believe Rocky and I are going to go to sleep. My left arm is really bothering me. I don't know what's going on with it, but I'm having some pain in my left arm. I have a plate in my left arm because I slipped and fell on the ice. Oh, must be 20 years ago now or more. And, yeah, it would be 20 years ago, actually. It would be. Yeah, 20 years ago. And anyway, I slipped and fell, and I shattered my left arm. I busted my left arm, the bone that goes from my wrist to my elbow. I busted that bone into 4 separate pieces, and had to get a stainless steel plate installed to hold my arm together. And it doesn't normally bother me, really. I very seldom have any real problems with it. But right where that plate is, where the screws go in and everything, because there's screws under my skin. If I put my hand along, I can feel them. It's really bothering me tonight anyway, and it doesn't normally do that, but it's doing it tonight. We're supposed to get a lot of rain tomorrow. It's +7 Celsius, so we're above freezing, because 0 Celsius is freezing. And it could be like the old story you hear about some old guy's toe starts to ache before it rains. Maybe it's something like that, I don't know, but it is supposed to rain tomorrow, so maybe that's why it's aching. But it is bothering me a bit anyway. Other than that, everything's alright. We're getting by pretty good, Rocky and I. There he is, he's having a sleep. Look at him, isn't he cute, eh? He's a little sweetie. He's just like a little baby. He is. Oh my goodness, eh? He makes my heart melt, this cat does, He really does. Look at him. Alright. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll see you all later. That's my good boy, Rocky. Alright. Hope you're all having a wonderful night or day or whatever time it is, wherever you are. And Rocky and I will see you in the morning. Bye for now.